Family, what I want to give us today is the prophetic framework, to give us a prophetic framework to work from that relates to our inheritance. It relates to the environment specifically that we will receive our inheritance in, and it relates to the prophetic sequence of events that the scriptures establish, and primarily in the book of Zechariah. We're going to go to the book of James as well. Don't forget that Nazi flag here, because Nasik, Nazism is on the rise in America.
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh.
All right. So, that's all right. Let everybody raise their heads up. I like this. Let everybody let everybody come to the table.
Yeah.
That's gonna come. We want everybody's head raised up. I'll begin here in James 5. James 5 verses 1 through 7. Verses 1 through 7. Go now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall what? Eat your flesh as it were fire. Do you know gold is one of the most conductive metals that we know of? Is everybody hearing me? And it says that this gold and silver is going to be a witness against you. Not only that, but it's going to eat your flesh as it were fire. Keep that in mind. If you're taking notes, write that down. Gold and silver, a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped up treasure together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers. It don't say slaves, it says laborers. The indigenous Americans, Nasik, were indentured servants by and large, not slaves. The hire, or the wages, or the reward of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them uh, of them which have reaped entered the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. So these cries, family, for reparations, caused by our cries for our inheritance, our demand for our inheritance, have reached the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Ye have lived in pleasure on the earth, talking to the rich man, and been wanton, and have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. Ye have condemned and killed the just, and he doth not resist you. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. I'm going to show you all exactly what that means. Maybe not today, but we are going to understand exactly where we are from a prophetic standpoint. Now, moving to the book of Zechariah, I want to read the first few verses, and then actually the first three verses, and then skip down to what we want to focus on. Behold, this is Zechariah 14, 1 through 3. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and the spoil shall be divided in the midst of thee. Now, this is our inheritance, being what? Divvied up and divided. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished, and half of the city shall go forth into captivity, and the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as he fought in the day of battle. All right? Skipping down to verse 11. And men shall dwell in it, and there shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. Now, listen to this. Now, remember, in James, it said, your silver and gold, James 5 and 3, your silver and gold is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. I'm getting ready to show you they ain't going to be able to hold on to nothing. They're not going to want to hold on to it. It correlates to the 12th verse of Zechariah 14. Listen. And this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet. Are you hearing me? And their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And it shall come to pass that in that day, that a great tumult from the Lord shall be among them, and they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Judah also shall fight at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the heathen round about shall be gathered together, gold and silver and apparel in abundance. Now, same factors that we saw in the passage from James, the 5th chapter, 1 through 7, is detailed here. I want to concentrate on this plague that James said is going to consume their flesh as it was fire, because this bandit knows exactly what is going to exactly what the future portends, and they are doing their best for centuries, for millennia, to forestall and deflect this day. But it is coming. It's upon us. It's here. And family, we are responsible for moving this thing forward. So we want to know in detail exactly what we're going to do. I showed you all the German flag and mentioned how Nazism is on the rise, not only just in America, but especially in America. They just in Pennsylvania elected a known Nazi, member of the Nazi Party, the neo-Nazis, to a political position there in Pennsylvania. And Pennsylvania, of course, is a, it is figured into prophecy, into prophecy. The only city that is currently a city mentioned in the book of Revelation in terms of the churches that were mentioned, that is a current city, is the city of Philadelphia. Now, why is the city of Philadelphia important? What was the first capital of the U.S.? Anybody know? It's the city of Philadelphia.
Brotherly love, huh?
Supposed to be. I ain't felt none.
I ain't felt none.
But it's very important, and we're gonna bring that back in, especially when we go to the book of Obadiah, the book of Obadiah, and we revisit the relationship with Esau and Jacob.
Yeah, right,
Because this is what we're it's playing out. Where's the love?
right.
So we're gonna know our precise history to the detail, and are going to understand exactly why these things must turn out the way that they do. In the movie, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, this was a ritual, but they showed accurately the idea of this plague. Now remember, Nasik, the English crown is not really English like that, it's German.
Yeah, right,
And they tried to bring about this Superman, this Aryan,
right, right,
right?
right.
This master race. And in Raiders of the Lost Ark, they showed in detail what it was as these Nazis were going around and conquering these ancient lands. This was, they used all of our symbols, and they tried to use our cult rituals. And Adolf Hitler, if you really understand the true history and read the right books, he was trying to what? Resurrect the beast from the pit. But they can't do it. These are our ancestors. And they put it in the minds of these individuals always throughout history, no matter how it looks, to accomplish their will. And they were going around and trying to find these artifacts, these ancient artifacts and symbols that were uh, a key to our dominion. They cannot reign on their own, family. Force and violence can only take you so far.
Yeah,
Power is eternal.
yes, yes,
Power is eternal. And we are the melanated beings are the only ones that wield by right power within this earth realm. And by science, now see, by right and by science.
yeah, yeah,
So I want you all to look at this scene because it's going to illustrate what James, the 5th chapter, is talking about their flesh consuming while they stand up. What Zechariah 14 talks about, this plague that is going to act like a fire. And y'all gonna see our ancestors in here too. So don't be scared. These is y'all folks. So they got the Ark of the Covenant up there.
Marion, don't look at it. Shut your eyes, Marion. Don't look at it no matter what happens.
Here they come. These are the great old ones. The divine feminine. We're going to get into this today. This is the divine feminine. They know that this is central, family.
Yeah.
Cosmic energy. Cosmic energy. They cannot, that only melanin can conduct that, can
Yeah.
handle that.
Yeah.
Only melanated into everybody else is going to get burned up by it. It's going to energize us unto divinity. But they cannot conduct this. What did it say? It would consume their flesh like fire. Going back up into that black hole, the way that they're representing it. So family, they know the connection. But we have to make this connection as well. This all has to do with what we've been emphasizing, the divine feminine. This is key. And I want to primarily address what we're going to talk about to the sisterhood, because indeed you are going to have to be active in this primarily. But I'm also speaking to the feminine aspect that resides in us all. So I'm speaking to the brothers as well. That divine feminine that resides in you. And again, this is nothing about being masculine or any less masculine or more feminine, nothing like that. We are talking about energetic signatures. Energetic signatures and centers that reside in all of us.
Yes.
So we showed yesterday how this marriage between uh, Prince Harry, matter of fact, let's go back. Raiders of the Lost Ark. What's the actor's name?
What's that guy's name?
Harrison Ford.
Yeah, Harrison. Right. Full. Right.
Look, these rituals, look, they leave no stone unturned. Prince Harry, Harry Potter. This guy's name in Darkest Minds is Harris Dickinson, right here. They're working rituals, family. We must be mindful of this. So they've always known the central role of the divine feminine and of the black female or the melanated female. They've known that this was central to power and inheritance. Central to power, dominion, and inheritance. But the worm is turning, and we are in possession of our consciousness, and we are taking possession of what belongs to us. This wedding that is happening on May the 19th is a ritual. They are trying to re-strengthen and reconnect energetically with our lineage through this young lady here and our inheritance. The ritual was repeated in the Harry Potter, the Half-Blood and the Half-Blood Prince. It was repeated in Monsters Ball on the silver screen. The year after that aired, it was repeated. See, Denzel didn't grab and kiss on her like that. It was repeated by Adrian Brody. I mean, who does this happen to? Meryl Streep? Glenn Close? When they receive their honors? No. It's the melanated female. And one that is, and especially one that is of what? Mixed lineage. That belongs to them, they feel. That belongs to them. Same way here. And we looked at the video that they are establishing a love connection between these two. That they are showing that they are removing in critical cases the divine feminine, the melanated feminine, from even what? Raising the child. And we saw it. We're going to see it in the Darkest Mind series. We saw it with the movie. What was that called? The Day the Earth Stood Still. And I'm going to read you a review on the blog site. These individuals, they are fans of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. And they noticed something wrong here too with casting Will Smith's son Jaden in the position that they did, having a white mother. The brother says total misfire. Jacob Benson That's the character Jaden Smith plays. The token cute kid is the poster child for PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. And that is what we have all been through collectively in this, and by extension, through this captivity process, so that they know who they're targeting. And apparently, no one has ever done therapy with him. IRL would he really be stuck with his stepmother Helen? Now, Helen, they are casting her as Helen. They are putting her in ritualistically. They are replacing the black woman, because I showed you that Helen sits in New York Harbor. That's the queen of hell, the queen of the underworld. Bear with me. And that's the Statue of Liberty. And the original Statue of Liberty was of a black woman, done by the French sculptor, and they replaced it by a more European looking woman. The Statue of Liberty that we see there, holding the torch and holding a book, family. Holding a torch and holding a book. The torch they got right. Water before, but fire next time. They got the torch and the lamp right. Again, using our symbols to prolong their dominance over us. Here we are. The original Statue of Liberty was a melanated woman. And this goes directly back to ISIS, family. We have to see this, because this is going to be our transition point, our gateway into power. So they replaced in this movie the Day the Earth Stood Still, the little black boy's mother, with the stepmother Helen. Are all his father's family dead also? The question is asked. If so, isn't that a prejudicial slap in the face to African Americans everywhere? Well, we know it is. We know that we are the target of these rituals, especially with the motion pictures. There is nothing wrong with people being raised by or raising people of other races. There is nothing wrong with someone marrying a person of another race. Race is a fictitious concept anyway. Agreed.
Absolutely.
See, I paid close attention to the cultural anthropology class. But in this case, it's made a shallow motivation for a kid to act out. And it's a silly attempt to make us sympathize with a character who is giving nothing to sympathize with. Why couldn't Jacob Benson have been a bright, reasonable, and inquisitive, instead of being Hollywood's racist picture of what degenerate black kids are like? Because that's the point. Will, and he's talking to Will Smith, why did you let your kid even play the part? So it's not just us that can see this thing. Others are able to look at it and understand something is not right. something is not right. So this royal wedding, family, is set to take place on the anniversary of the birth of Queen Sophia Charlotte, or Queen Charlotte Sophia. Her name meaning Charlotte Freeman, Sophia Wisdom, the wisdom of the free man. If indeed we are fighting for freedom, the divine feminine is going to be, must be primary, and it must be central to that movement, to the movement of that energy, to the accessing of that energy, and moving it what? Into the realms of the simulated reality for manifestation. So we started talking about this, Nasik, a few days ago, right?
Right.
On yesterday, March 31st of 2018, this article came out. Denmark gets first public statue of a black woman, a rebel queen.
Wow. Denmark.
Come on now.
Denmark, you say, right?
Come on now, see? Yes.
Wow. Wow.
This stuff is being set up for us. But we have to recognize this on a personal level. And we have to see this through divine eyes, not just human eyes. And we have to connect with our divinity that is not external to us, but is internal. The statue of Mary Thomas, called I Am Queen Mary, is the first public monument to a black woman in Denmark, according to the artist. Now, we're going to talk about the artist too. Queen Mary, y'all. Queen Mary. Now, who else is Mary? We talked about this yesterday. The Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
This is all coming.
Mary is water.
Is everything all right? We can't hear you. hear you, Eitai.
All right. Yeah, I had muted. I had muted so that we wouldn't get the feedback. But the divine feminine is always pictured, the divine feminine is always pictured with with two objects in her hands. All right? This is going to be very important. The masculine, when you see the representation of the masculine, both objects are there, like with the magician, but he's only holding one, and the sword is on the table. Very important, because this is instructive. You see the representation of the divine feminine. She is wearing a mask and is clothed like a man, but has both in possession of both objects. Again, the second object is on the table. Again, the masculine has the rod that budded in his hand, but the sword is on the table. Now remember, we just looked at the Raiders of the Lost Ark. What was inside the ark? The manna, the bowl of manna, Aaron's rod that budded, right? And then the Ten Commandments, the tablets, correct? These are all representations that we see in terms of the divine feminine. Now, this is going to be very interesting as we cover these topics, and it's going to lead us to what we said is going to be a step-by-step how to do this instruction process. We're not going to be able to lose. Not going to be able to lose. But we must familiarize ourselves with these things. So, you see, she is configured with the two objects, a cane knife and a torch, a burning torch. And she is sitting just like Huey Newton was sitting with what? The spear and the rifle, and sitting in the same type of chair. And Black Panther is situated the same way. This is no coincidence, family, that this is happening. Our ancestors are orchestrating this whole thing, Nasik, as they have orchestrated it from the beginning.
Yes, Eitai. No question in my mind about it.
100% control. This article, we started talking about this thing, Nasik, several days ago, toward the end of March, and here this article comes. You bring up the subject of the Queen, and here it is.
Yeah, this is awesome.
We've done this. If you've been on this call, we've done this from the moment that we have started doing these things and broadcasting this, putting it out in the ether. There's an article that comes up either that day or a couple of days after that. Here we are again. Copenhagen, the statue of a woman is nearly 23 feet tall. Her head is wrapped, and she stares straight ahead while sitting barefooted, but regally, in a wide back chair, clutching a torch in one hand and a tool used to cut sugarcane in the other. In Denmark, where most of the public statues represent white men, two artists on Saturday unveiled the striking statue that portrays 19th century rebel queen who led a fiery revolt. Water first, fire next time, against Danish colonial rule in the Caribbean. It's billed as Denmark's first public monument of a black woman. Y'all don't know y'all making history to happen. You haven't really realized, most of us are thinking that this is just a coincidence. But this is directly related. Now, I'm dead serious. This is directly related to what we're doing. Sounds funny, sounds strange. But
Can't even imagine.
can't even imagine it, but this is what is happening. This is conscious, deliberate creation. This is what it looks like, family.
Yeah. Yeah.
The sculpture was inspired by Mary Thomas, who, with her other two female leaders, known as the Queens. Can you believe this, Nasik?
Yeah, this is unprecedented, you
It's
know. This is
unprecedented.
how we know. This is exactly how we know that because it's unprecedented at such a time, it
Right.
is just a verification. That's all it is, a
It's
verification.
a verification of what it is that we're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
With two other females, known as the Queens, unleashed an uprising, listen, in 1878, called the Fire Burn. What did we just read? That fire would consume their flesh.
Yeah.
50 plantations and most of the town of Frederiksted on the west coast of St. Croix. Now, St. Croix has to do with the cross. We'll talk about that later. Were torched in what has been called the largest labor revolt in Danish colonial history. Why didn't they call it a slave revolt? Why did they say labor revolt instead of a slave revolt? Because it's what we're pointing out to you. These were indigenous people. We didn't take this, Nasik.
No.
We were indentured servants when they
That's all.
treated us wrong and didn't give us what they said they was going to give us.
And then we became prisoners of war.
Absolutely. We didn't turn the other cheek. We declared war on them.
Right. And became prisoners of war.
That's correct. We got to know our history. And we got to take ourselves mentally from where the indoctrination has put us. I used to talk to people and say from my heart, and I say, hey, if I was back there, I wouldn't have went for all that. Hey, brother, you don't know what? Nah, I know I wouldn't have went for it. That's not how my soul is structured. But we've been indoctrinated to believe that everyone sat back and took this stuff. That's not the case. Judah is up in here.
And you know what mean Judah does.
Come on now. Judah was up in here. Foot on the neck of their enemies at all times. This project, see, we got to, in order to properly align family, with this energy. We have to have the emotional. That's where our energy is coming. The emotional connect. We can't be pacifists in a time of war. Energetically. Now, see, we watch sports all the time.
Right.
And we see a talented team that energetically some nights is not there. They're not going to win.
That's right.
They have to bring that level of emotion, that level of energy, that level of energetic, explosive, violent play in order to overcome obstacles. I don't care if you're competing in a one-man sport where you're competing against yourself. You still got to bring that attitude. The project is about challenging Denmark's collective memory and what? Changing it. The Virgin Islands artist Levon Bale, one of two principal forces behind the statue, said in a statement, the unveiling comes at the end of a centennial year. Listen, commemorating the sale of Denmark by Denmark of 3 islands to the United States on March 3rd, family, 1917. St. Croix, St. John, St. Thomas, the price $25 million. All right, y'all put that on the list. They owe us that with interest. Though Denmark, I'm making a list and checking it twice. Though Denmark prohibited transatlantic slave traffic in 1792. Now, y'all got to pay attention to what was just said and pay attention to that date. It didn't rush to enforce the ban. The rule took effect 11 years later, and slavery continued until 1848. They wanted to fill the stocks first and ensure enough slaves would remain to keep the plantations running, said Niels Brem, an associate professor. See, Nasik, this stuff was to end somewhere in the neighborhood of 1776, 1792, before the turn of the century. That's when it's supposed to end, but we see all of this technology that is being enacted 1700 through 1800 and into the 19th century. Is that not correct? This stuff was not supposed to last as long. But they put salt into the game. We're going to address this later. They address it in the scriptures as well. Three decades after slavery formally ended on what are today known as the United States Virgin Islands, the United States Virgin Islands, Virgin Islands, Virginia, the Virgin Mary, conditions for the former slaves had not improved significantly. That continued injustice fomented the uprising of St. Croix. Fomented the uprising of St. Croix. The two artists, and here they are, Jeanette Ellers and Levon Bale, were inspired by Mary Thomas, with two other female leaders known as the Queens, unleashing an uprising in 1878 on St. Croix. I'm telling you, that feminine energy has to be activated first. Now, we're not talking about the use of force, but we're talking about spiritual warfare. We're talking about spiritual warfare. But these three sisters didn't have a problem with applying force. The only other tribute to Denmark's colonies, or those who were colonized, is a statue of a generic figure from Greenland. Same thing that they tried to work in America with the Statue of Liberty. The Danish artist Jeanette Ehlers, excuse me, who teamed up with Miss Bell to create Queen Mary, the Queen Mary monument, said, look, 98% of the statues in Denmark are representing white males. The torch and the cane bill held in the statue's hands symbolize the resistance strategies by those who were colonized. That's the energy that we have to tap into, family. The artist said in a statement, her seated pose recalls the iconic 1967 photograph of Huey P. Newton, founder of the Black Panther Party. Now look, this is our ancestors are putting this all in our face. The highest grossest movie ever repeated the same pose. We got to see what's going on, family. If this is a coincidence, I need somebody to explain it to me, because I don't see it. What we must understand at this point, and as we bring this to a close, is the idea that the feminine energy represents what has been termed nemesis. Nemesis, historically. Now we know that this is a latter-day Greek term, but as we said at the outset, it goes back to Isis and the Osirian myth of Isis, Osiris, and Heru. The hero's journey. And Nasik, we have repeated multiple times and emphasized that we are on this hero's journey.
Yes, well, that's it. Mm-hmm.
So this idea of nemesis is central to all of the allegorical myths. And it is always symbolized in terms of the divine feminine, not just in the allegory, family. It is reflected in real life. That is these feminine warriors that are the ones that stand up for justice and retribution. Who was it during the civil rights movement? Rosa Parks. During slavery. And we'll take a look. Throughout history, all you have to do is just look at the history of repression and see that it was that feminine energy that was activated, that was central. It's all connected now, see?
Yeah, Eitai, as you talking and explaining things, what I'm doing right now, and I'll have it together for the family tomorrow. I want to show how we have misunderstood the concept of Genesis 2:20 through 24 in respect to what
That's
you're
right.
laying out right now. I'm gonna have that laid out tomorrow, so they're gonna see how what we must do to activate the power you're talking about.
That's correct. It's there, family. It's right there in front of us.
Yeah, right there.
Right.
Right there in front of us. So this idea of nemesis is again represented in the feminine all the time. It's defined as the inescapable agent of someone's or something's downfall. And now, see, that was the question that we were asked. How are we going to
Right,
bring this to an end?
right.
And
That's
once we put forth a good quality question, a superior quality answer shows up every time. It's in the news now. It's inescapable. It is also defined as a long-standing rival, an arch enemy. And we've already shown how that during the captivity process, the feminine, the melanated female, was the one that was targeted, even for even according to their knowledge, that they knew that the female would that dominating and controlling the female, breaking the female, as they said, would also break the male. It's defined as a downfall caused by an inescapable agent. Inescapable agent. They know that this is coming, that it is inescapable. An act or effect of retribution, justice, payback, or vindication. And so what I've done is show these representations and present them again that we've shown you before. Queen Mary, Thomas in the middle with the torch and the cane knife. And what was she doing with the cane knife and torch in the revolt? She wasn't cutting cane. They were cutting heads off and then burning the plantations and the property behind them. This representation is ancient. The sword of vengeance, the sword of vindication, the sword of justice, the sword of retribution in one hand, always represented whether in the male or in the female. That aspect of retribution, of what we have come to know as divine judgment and justice. This is on the horizon, family. It is within our hands to execute this. Queen Mary, also known as Mary Thomas, one of the leaders of the rebellion of St. Croix in 1878. In pictures from the period, she is depicting holding a sharp sugar knife and a burning torch, both very dangerous tools in the hands of a rebel. The nemesis in mythology is the goddess of revenge. The name Nemesis is related to the Greek word nemein, meaning to give what is due. In the ancient Greek religion, Nemesis was the goddess who enacted retribution, against those who succumb to hubris, arrogance before the gods. Another name was adrastia, meaning the inescapable. It's going to happen, family. The scriptures that we read, Isaiah 54, you will not be ashamed. So it is at this point that we must put our all into this, not hold back. Nemesis believed that no one should ever have too much. Let me ask you a question. A carriage, a horse carriage, solid gold, worth $370 billion. Does that sound like a little too much?
A little too much in terms of what, Eitai?
Somebody having some of mine that belongs
Oh,
to me.
that, that, that's not a little too much. That's a whole lot too much.
Nemesis believed that no one should have too much, and she had always cursed those who were blessed with countless gifts. The nemesis of a person or thing is a situation, event, or person which causes them to be seriously harmed, especially as punishment. An opponent or enemy that is likely to be impossible for you to defeat. They know this. Or a situation that is likely to be impossible for you to deal with. A spirit of divine retribution against those who succumb to hubris. And I would say that, it is impossible to define this this aberrant man. I think they've gone beyond hubris. I want to get back
Yes,
to the ancient idea and then connect this thing as we close, family, back to us. If you accuse someone of hubris, you are accusing them of arrogant pride. This is what is being demonstrated in America right now. The leader that they've chosen for the last days will lie about anything. And then arrogantly it's reported when he is called on his lie, he calls it fake news. If that is not hubris, I don't know what is. Hubris describes a personality quality of extreme or foolish pride or dangerous overconfidence. Again, we're going to go directly to the scriptures and show you that as it relates to the last days, the ancestors, have described to a T why it is that the individuals that are dominating and oppressing us now are going to be punished. And it corresponds directly to this idea of hubris. In its ancient Greek context, it typically describes behavior that defies the norms of behavior or challenges the gods. What does aberrant mean? That it wanders beyond that which is normal. Isn't that correct, Nasik?
that's correct. That's absolutely correct.
They've wandered beyond,
That's absolutely correct.
outside the boundaries of that which is normal behavior. That is aberrant behavior. They get what's coming to them, which in turn brings about a downfall or nemesis or of the perpetrator of hubris. And again, we're going to trace that this is in the scriptures, outlined perfectly. The adjectival form of the noun hubris is hubristic. Hubris, usually perceived as a characteristic of an individual rather than a group, although the group the offender belongs to may suffer collateral consequences for a wrongful act. That is just too perfect. Hubris often indicates a loss of contact with reality and an overestimation of one's own competence, accomplishments, and capabilities. That is a de facto definition of white supremacy right there.
Yes, it is.
Contrary to common expectations, by whom hubris is not necessarily associated with high self esteem, but with highly fluctuating and variable self esteem and a gap between inflated self perception and a more modest reality. If you were truly superior and you knew it, each of us are superior to someone else in a certain area. But if you were truly convinced yourself that you were superior, you wouldn't have to demonstrate it all the time. You wouldn't have to go to the extent, family, that they've gone to keep us down. So we know that there is something else going on here, something else that is being played out in history. Hubris is defined as overbearing pride or presumption. As a literary term, hubris stems from Greek tragedy, and the word refers to an excess, ambition, and pride, ultimately causing the transgressor's ruin. We can see it on the horizon. Hubris usually refers to infractions by mortal agent against mortals. An accusation of hubris often implies that suffering or punishment will follow. We just saw it when we looked at Raiders of the Lost Ark. The very nature that the Bible describes would occur. Similar to the occasional pairing of hubris and nemesis in Greek society. In the Greek tragedies, Nemesis, also known as the goddess Rhamnos or Rhamnus, appears chiefly as the inescapable avenger of crime and the punisher of those who succumb to hubris, arrogance before the gods. Who are the gods in this case? Us.
Absolutely.
She is the spirit of divine retribution. The spirit of divine retribution. The word nemesis originally meant the distributor of fortune. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes, man. Yes, yes, yes.
The
Yes, yes.
distributor of fortune. Neither good nor bad. This ain't about morality. Neither good nor bad, simply in due proportion to each according to what was deserved. Y'all deserve your inheritance? This is what's coming. Then Nemesis came to suggest the resentment caused by any disturbance of this right proportion, or the sense of justice which could not allow it to pass unpunished. Originally, in ancient Greek society, hubris had strong connotations towards sexual misconduct. Strong connotation towards sexual misconduct. Strong connotations towards sexual misconduct. Strong connotations towards sexual misconduct. The term split dark oak is defined as a white male having sex with a black female. What's big in the news today, family? Sexual harassment, correct?
Big, big.
And they even accusing Donald Trump. What is sexual harassment but a person in a position of power, what? Being sexually inappropriate with those that are under that power and or oppression. Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
So this has nothing to do with race. It has to do with power. And they are continuing to represent this thing in symbolically, family, a term that is inherently derogatory and pejorative. See, but when we talk about these things, the automatic thought is, oh, well, white people back. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these individuals in positions of power should not be sexually involved with the oppressed. This is the movie's Monsters Ball, which talked about this subject. And the quote is, when I was younger, I had a taste for a little nigger juice myself. You ain't a man until you have split dark oak. This is the idea behind all of this, family. The,
Yeah.
the idea of being sexually inappropriate with our women. It has to do with sexual misconduct and general violence towards others. The category of acts constituting hubris in the ancient Greeks apparently broadened from the original reference to molestation of a corpse or humiliation of a defeated foe to molestation. Are we the defeated foe?
Yes.
Come on now. To molestation or outrageous treatment in general. Aristotle believed, and Aristotle was a melanated man, believed that individuals engage in these types of behaviors to humiliate victims, with the underlying desire being to make themselves feel superior. Hubris consists in doing and saying things that cause shame to the victim simply for the pleasure of it. Retaliation is not hubris, but revenge, family. Retaliation is not hubris, but revenge. Young men, and the rich are hubristic because they think they are better than other people. Ending on this, Aphrodite. Aphrodite is also known as Cytherea, the Lady of Cytherea, and Cyprus, Lady of Cyprus. Myrtles, doves, sparrows, horses, and swans are sacred to her. Remember what we read about swans and what I showed you about the black swan on the British with the British flag.
Right.
They have always focused on the divine feminine. The Greeks further identified the ancient Egyptian goddess Hathor with Aphrodite, bringing this all home. Hathor was worshipped by royalty and common people alike. Y'all got to hear that, because the royalty continued their emphasis on the importance of the divine feminine. But we, through indoctrination, focused our attention away from the divine feminine. But they've always, Nasik, had their eye on not
Yeah,
only the melanated female, but the divine feminine.
yeah, yeah.
In those tombs, she is depicted as the mistress, not of the East, but the West, welcoming the dead into the next life. Important point coming up. The ancient Egyptians viewed reality as multi-layered. That is, the superimposed seven heaven reality that we've been telling you about, in which deities who merge together for various reasons, whilst retaining divergent attributes, and myths, were not seen as contradictory, but complementary. We have to
Eitai,
yes,
this part right here, when we come tomorrow, remember this part right here. I want you to go here as I lay out this particular point to make this connection. This is the key part right here, okay, for me?
I'm right with you. This is why I want to end here. I'm right
Okay.
with you, brother. Right with you.
Ex-
The ancient Egyptians
ex-
viewed reality this is as multi-layered, superimposed seven heaven reality, in which deities who merge together for various reasons, whilst retaining divergent attributes and myth, were not seen as contradictory. See, we're showing you tarot cards, we're showing you Isis, we're showing you this goddess, Nemesis, that it's all the same thing. In a complicated relationship, Hathor is at times the mother, daughter, and wife of Ra, and like Isis, is at times described as the mother of Horus or Heru, and associated with Bast. Y'all know who Bast is? That is the cat god that was in the movie Black Panther that all the Wakandians worship. So this is bringing this back around, family, full circle. The things that are happening, that are in our contemporary world, we are pushing these things from a higher realm of consciousness into the simulated reality. That is why they are showing up.
Yeah.
That is why they are showing up. And Nasi, like you said, it's just confirmation of what
Yeah.
we're doing.
Confirmation.
And the same way that you are seeing these articles and these events transpiring within the space time reality, our inheritance and our freedom and our vindication is going to come about the exact same way. So, with that, I'm going to leave it there. I'm really looking forward to this piece that Nasik is bringing from the second chapter of the book of Genesis. This is, I'm talking about, this is critical. This is critical.
Yeah,
So with
yeah.
that, I'm going to say wholeness, and we'll end right here.